Okay, friends, welcome back to a long overdue special episode of Brews with Dubes. And we're here with my dad, Gilles Dube, who has been gracious enough to join us for this occasion. So, how you doing?
Very good. How about you?
I'm doing great.
All right.
What are we drinking here? We've got a Diet Coke on Brews with Dubes, and we've got a Busch NA. We're going big time, budget through the roof. All right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about is, I think you've got a real unique background that you don't hear a lot about these days, is people coming from a big family. So tell us a little bit about brothers and sisters and where you came from.
I came from Canada, a small town, Quetzcook in Quebec. And I come from a family of 11, and I had 6 sisters and 4 brothers. And at the age of 16, 17 years old, I left a small town to go to the service in Canada. And being one of 11, yeah, you don't get missed like if you were just 2 or 3 in a family, but my family decided to move to the United States, and I served a couple of years in Canada, and then I decided myself, I'm going to go join the family. I mean, if I'm going to serve, if I have to serve again in the service in the United States, I will do that. So when I got here, they accepted my service, and I moved on and became a machinist, and it was all good, and I'm glad I did.
So when you were in Canada, you were going to school.
Yep.
But then at maybe middle school, what age did you stop going to school? You had to stop going to school, right?
At the 9th grade, and I went in the service and sort of finished my high school through the service. We were doing a lot of schooling at the beginning, learning the language and stuff. I was more interested in speaking English and being part of it because a lot of it was English, even in Canada. So it wasn't English like talking about English with what you call the English here. You know, it was the proper. It was the proper language. It wasn't necessarily talking about the English like. You know what I'm talking about when you go and take a certain class. As far as English, they talk about Caesar and stuff, you know. And
Understood.
I wasn't interested in Caesar. For me, I was very interested in speaking the language more. So one of the teachers might have thought that I was disturbing the class when I was in this class, so he slapped me on the side of the head there, and he sent me to the colonel, and I sat there in the colonel's office for a couple of years, couple of weeks, couple of hours,
yeah.
You know, and it seemed like weeks, a month in there when you sit a long time. And he asked me what I was doing there, and I said, well, I'm not really interested in knowing about Caesar. I'm more interested about the language. I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 of us in that class that it would be better for us to learn the language than learn about Caesar. Mm-hmm. So he says, that's the right move. I mean, we're going to start a class and teach you the proper way, speaking English and everything. And it turned out to be a great thing for me to disturb the class.
So he actually listened, and he saw that it was a valid point. You were learning the wrong thing. You were learning, right, to appreciate the literature, not learning how to speak the language.
Right, exactly.
So how did you enlist?
I enlist, being 11 in a family and stuff. I mean, I could see a privilege in a certain way, mature, faster, and at the time. Finishing my schooling there was the right thing and learning about everything in general, you know.
Yep.
You mature very fast when you're in the service. I mean, you get trained on all kinds of different duties and stuff, and you learn to take care of your clothes and wash and everything else. So, you know, the idea of the service was to finish up the school and learn sort of a trade in a way and make the best of it, you know.
So you got your diploma, high school diploma, through the service,
Right.
while serving.
In the military, we finished 11th and 12th grade, like, you know, and moved on.
And then you played sports.
Yes,
while in the Army. So talk a little bit about what sports you played.
I really liked volleyball, and I got involved. You don't have to be 7 foot to play volleyball. You can still play 5'11", 5'12", 6, you know, and enjoy the sport. And for me, it was a little bit of a challenge and stuff, but I loved the sport. It didn't make any difference what sport it was, but volleyball at the time, we played against some college and some prison. And, you know, you win some, you lose some, but it's always a challenge. But we competed against some good team, and we had a good time. And the service sort of gave me that in a way, you know, and the teachers and the instructors and everybody was very, very challenging people that everybody likes to win, you know, so you compete.
That's right. I want you to talk to me about that. There was a story you told us a few years back. You had to come home. You were stationed, it's still in Canada. Somebody passed away maybe.
Yes.
And you needed a ride home. Your brother, your oldest brother, Marshall, was going to give you a ride, right? But you had to do some hitchhiking to get to a certain point.
Exactly.
Tell me that story.
I was in Borden, Ontario, in my second year, and I had the bad news of knowing that one of my uncles passed away in a car accident. And the people in Borden, whatever it was, the colonel and the lieutenant or the captain, they offered me some money and stuff and tried to set me up. But because I had such a little amount of time, it was hard to get a flight out of there. It was hard to do anything. So I told the captain, and I said, you know, I'm going to hitchhike from Borden and go down to Montreal, and then from Montreal to Sherbrooke, you know, and I think I can make it on time to get, you know, to be a pallbearer and stuff for my uncle. So I did that, and I think it was a real challenge to a certain point, because it's not that I hitchhiked too many times in my life, but when I left there, I met some people that I never saw in my life, but I dressed up as a service person. People do stop, and there was a trucker that stopped, and he was really going 50, 55 miles an hour, and he says, oh, you're not going to get anywhere with me, you might as well stop here, I'll drop you off, and you'll probably get another ride. Luckily, he was right. I got somebody with a beautiful Buick Wildcat that was brand new, and it was an American person, and an American family, but the young man that had served in the United States, and the father and mother was there, and they gave me a ride back, and they just happened to be drinking a little bit. And, you know, being a person that was a little nervous at the time and stuff, so they passed the bottle around a little bit, and he might have been speeding a little too much, and wanted a gendarme from Canada stopped us, and I was a little worried at first, because I said, oh, who's going to drive now, you know, because the old man was a little bit sauced up, and then the mother was drinking too, so the son happened to be sitting in the back and stuff, and he says, oh, I got my license, and I'll take the wheel from there on. And the gendarme asked for the license and registration, and The man said, yes, we've been drinking a little bit, but this is a vacation for us, and we'll be okay. And he says, well, it's not the part of being okay. You're driving at a high rate of speed, and you've been drinking. So when he asked for the registration, he reached in the dash, and the bottle fell. And when the bottle fell, the gendarme says, well, I'll get that. I'll take that. You guys had enough of them. So he says, oh, wait a minute now. I have to make a line here, because when we go to court, make sure that you bring that bottle back. Where the line is where the booze is. So not that I have any problem with you taking the bottle, but I'm going to make a line here. You have a marker? The policeman happened to have a marker. He did mark the bottle, and says, I'm going to give you some paper here, but just have the son drive from now on, and you guys take it easy. I mean, you want to make it to Montreal and have a good vacation, then you're going to have to slow down.
And you let everybody go.
So when we took off from there, the son, even though he was a very good driver, happened to proceed to the wrong way on the highway, and I said, whoa, 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 I'm not heading back to Toronto, I'm heading to Montreal. So we turned around again and got on the way to Montreal, made it there, and then from Montreal to Sherbrooke, I hitchhiked again. I had a good ride, and there was no problem. In Sherbrooke, I called my brother, and he came and picked me up, and the trip was over, but it's never over. You have to go back after.
Yeah.
So we had a 3-day pass, and when we got through the funeral and everything, it's a very sad young man in an accident like that passed away, and it was the youngest of the family for the Dube there, so it was a sad time.
Was that your dad's brother?
Yes.
Okay.
So we finished the funeral and everything, and said goodbye to the family and everything, and this time I got back on a train. That took forever to get back, but it was a good trip back.
That's great. Didn't the woman have to take a leak on the side of the road?
Yes, she did, and it wasn't any bathroom there. She just opened the door,
Just jumped
and dropped, and proceeded what she had to do, and got back in, and it was no problem for her to just drop the drawers and do what she had to do, because she says, oh, I can't wait for a bathroom. This is it. I said, oh, well, do what you have to do.
It's a different time. I don't know. Maybe this stuff still happens.
It was in
places, but
in 1965 or 66, so it was quite a while back. Yeah. And yes, when you had a brand new Buick, it was a good ride.
Yeah, that's a heck of a ride. I remember going to Kutskook when the Main Pape had their 50th, I think it was the 50th wedding anniversary.
Yeah.
Now, there's a ballpark there. Tell me who played there and what was their affiliation? Was that was a minor league team?
It was a minor league team in that small town of 7,000 people.
Yep.
They had a beautiful ballpark with lots of fans that went to that ball game, and they were affiliated with the Dodgers at the time, and there were some players from the Dodgers in the town of Kutskook, and they played a minor league with Sherbrooke and Victoriaville and Granby, and it was a different team from different areas and stuff, but a very, very good baseball type of when you say minor league, they were very professional, and they did tremendous pitching. There was a lot of young men that joined the team and stuff, and they were always competing with teams that were good or even better than them, you know. But they were affiliated with the American team, and you could see a good brand of baseball for $3 or $4
of course,
ticket,
at that time. And I'm sure the minor leagues were structured differently then than they are now. I wonder if it was a Class A team, a rookie league. You know, it was. I remember it was affiliated team. It wasn't just an independent franchise kind of thing. But then eventually, I think minor leagues are so different now. They closed a lot of them. A lot of these little cities and towns, they don't have the team anymore.
Exactly.
They tightened it up.
You know.
And maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. It was good because it gave a lot of ball players the hope.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of these, even when you go to Hartford Yard Goats, a lot of these guys, and that's the highest level of baseball they're going to make.
Yeah.
That's really the AA year. You're either going to go up and get a shot, or you're going to go out. But
they get to enjoy a beautiful game just the same, you know.
Well,
they compete against some good team, and it's a good experience for the future and stuff. There's not the very low percentage of people that's going to make the major league
but
and
the
stuff, but
they
still play great baseball.
Yeah.
You know, and they enjoy the sport.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about this. We've got to talk about how you all got to the United States. And then what I really want to talk about is when you met Mom. Because she had a similar path in a way, right? To come from, they were here, they were in Maine, but they come to Connecticut looking for a better opportunity.
Yes.
But I've retold the story of you meeting Mom, but I think over the years in retelling it, I've probably altered it further from the truth than it needs to be. So I need to hear the story again. So maybe let's start there. So walk us through coming here, how many came, and then, your dad got work.
Yep.
You found some work too. But just talk a little bit about that.
Well, when the family moved in United States in 1965, I was in the service then, you know. So the family moved. One of my sisters stayed behind and then decided to get the papers and move with the rest of the family.
Yep.
I had one brother that was in Maine that moved in a little after Marshall.
Yep.
And like I said before, I decided when I leaving the service, I was coming here. I said, well, for more than one reason, I didn't want to spend 5 years there in the service because one of the captain had kids on an ice rink in the wintertime. They went skating on ice rink, and a couple of the kids on that in that family, even though he said it was just because it was the weekend of the ice rink, but they had all in their pants and stuff. And I said to the captain, I said, well, it's time for me to move on to United States because I don't want my kids to have holes in their pants. It's time for me to get a job and maybe get a family going and everything. And he explained to me that it was strictly because they were going to ice rink, they were going to fall on the ice and stuff, and because they had hole in their pants didn't mean anything. But for me, I decided it was very important for the kids to wear the proper attire, and I said, it's time for me to move on. So I went to Montreal, and I stayed with my aunt for 2 or 3 months to get all my paper in line and everything. And at that time, you needed the proper paperwork to go to the United States, get a visa and everything. So my dad helped me. We went to the casino. They needed carpenters and stuff and helpers. Yep. So we got the paperwork going, and I finally got my visa and went to work for this construction outfit at the beginning with my dad. And we were building condos and apartment building and stuff. And after just a few months, my dad said, well, maybe you ought to move into a shop and stuff because in the summer when it rained, it didn't work. And we spent plenty of hours at the casino at that time. And the casino wasn't gambling, it was drinking. Yes, so my dad said it would be better for a young man like you to be in the shop learning the trade of machinists and stuff. And at that time, there was a lot of training class and stuff. Yeah. And I did that. And I proceeded to move on to the machinists. And along the way, I became a lead man, and then a supervisor, and then a foreman in the nuclear field, and it was all a plus for me. Then we started playing softball, and at that time, there was some girl watching the softball game and stuff, and I happened to meet Nancy, my wife now, and she had a brand new car, a Javelin. At that time, it was the first year that they made that car. So it was the thrill for her to be driving that Javelin, and I had my spike, and I was kind of knocking against the tire and the back bumper just to take the dirt off my sneakers and spike. So she says, "Who is that gentleman over there that's doing that to my brand new car?" And her best friend said, "Oh, this is Gilles Dube. Comes from a family, and they live in East Hartford now, but they used to live in Hartford, and they're a big family that came from Canada." And so in a few weeks later, I asked her to go to a dance and stuff, and we went to the French club, and a few months later, we were married.
Now, were you working with Mom's dad, with Pepe parent? Did you work together in the Hartford East Hartford? That part wasn't.
No.
Okay.
I met Nancy's dad another weekend.
Okay.
There was an auto show in Hartford, and I wanted to take her out at the auto show and stuff. And a gentleman happened to be working at Pratt on the second shift, and he was coming home at midnight. And I was in the driveway, and he says, "Hey, young man, what are you doing here?" And I started speaking French to him because I knew that he spoke French.
Yes.
He says, "Oh, you're a Frenchman, come on upstairs." And I went upstairs, and I said, "Well, I would like to take your daughter out for a weekend, just that night to go to the auto show."
Yeah.
And he says, "Well, yeah, young man, come on up. So I went upstairs, and she happened to be in pajamas and with rollers on her head. And she says, "Oh, who's this? This is Mr. Dube. He wants to take you to the auto show." So she says, all right. The only reason I'm like that is because my grandmother's over here, and she's taking my room and stuff, but let me put some clothes on, and we'll talk." So she did accept to go to the auto show, and I picked her up the next day, and one of the first date that I had, and then I moved on, and like I said, it didn't take that long to get married.
Yeah. That's great. So I was pretty close. I didn't twist that story too bad.
No, that was...
But when I tell that story, I used to tell that story to my students in leadership, because what we teach the kids in leadership is making a good first impression.
Yeah.
But it's never too late to change a first impression, but it takes a long time. Right? Sometimes it can take 20 meetings to let somebody forget the bad first impression that you made. That's the research on that.
Yeah.
So I tell them that story. So, I wouldn't be alive if my dad couldn't change a first impression that he made when he stomped his cleats on my mom's beautiful brand new Javelin. They were able to overcome that. That was pretty good. That she wasn't too mad.
Yes.
Other than
Well, the cleats wasn't meant to be bad news.
Sure.
It was just
were they metal?
Well, they were plastic.
Okay.
So it wasn't damaging anything, but at the time, because it was a brand new car,
it was a mint car.
It was a little surprise, But even though she had a Javelin, I had the Torino that at that time was very nice.
It was a hot car too.
It was a hot car, and they had one, the Daytona 500.
Nice.
So I was kind of showing up a little bit that my car was as good as the Javelin.
I did not know that. That's a great part of the story.
Yeah. And we moved on, and then next thing you know, we wanted to live in, not necessarily we could afford a house at the time, but
Yep.
I bought a mobile home in
Yep.
Vernon, and we made that a home for 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
And then worked different shift and stuff, and became a little more successful, and then it was time to buy a house when the second kid come around. So I said, we'll go look for a house and see what we could find. And we found this house in Enfield, and that was the house that was supposed to be the beginning house, but it's still going.
That's here we are. The beginning house has been just good enough.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about baseball. So we gotta get into. Let's start with Dave, my older brother. He started Little League. He only played 1 year, right?
Yeah.
Ladies driving school.
Yeah.
Thompsonville Little League.
Yeah.
And he got out of that because of the eyes, right? Is that where we learned that he needed glasses? Probably about 5th grade.
Well, yes. It was in baseball.
Did you coach
in
the team?
school. Yes, I was coaching the team
Okay.
with another gentleman from Enfield.
Yep.
And, when he sat in front of the class,
Yep.
it was no problem.
Yep.
But when the teacher put him in the back of the
It
class.
was Mr. Perry.
Yes. And we found out that he really needed the glass.
Yeah.
So we went, and we had no idea at that time that it was needed,
Right.
So after we took him to the optometrist and we got glasses and everything, we drove on 91, and that kid was so impressed with the billboard
freaking
on the
see.
side of the highway because he never saw those. And he says, "Oh my God, look at all the billboards there
clear.
is going to Hartford."
He
He was so amazed because he never saw them.
Yeah.
And David,
But what got him out of baseball? He just wanted to play basketball?
he played basketball.
He just got out of that.
Yeah, he not that he didn't like baseball and stuff, but I think he got to like basketball better.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
it turned out to be what he wanted to do. So,
I remember going to Friendly Field behind Schemmerhorns,
yes.
where most of those games were.
Yeah.
Now it's like there's houses there. It's all gone.
Yeah.
But that was a field that a lot of these guys watching played on their whole career. A lot of our teammates from the 60s, 70s, 80s, they all played in that league. Now, I remember my first year playing. So that was the Pirates, the yellow team. I was 8.
Yeah.
And you were the head coach.
Yeah.
And David was the assistant,
Yes.
which was great. And I remember some parents giving you crap over that. Right? Isn't that true?
Yeah.
But he just kept the buck and helped you out. It wasn't
That's all.
anything like
That's all. It
crazy.
was
But
all
people,
good time.
people were crazy
And
back then.
even at that time, it was very competitive.
Yep. That was
The
a good team.
idea is for the kids to play baseball,
Yep.
not win or lose.
And we were pitching.
But it was always competitive,
Yep.
And like any other people and any other parent, it was easier to handle kids than the parent.
Yep. But do you remember some of the players? I remember some of the players on that team. We had Matt Papa Pietro,
Yes.
who I played with my whole career.
Yes.
He was a great player.
Yeah.
We had Keith Lawler, who ended up being more of a hockey guy, but he was a good little athlete.
Yes.
And do you remember the youngest kid on the team? Do you remember his name? I'm going to tell you what it was, but he was 6. I think you had him playing second base, 6-year-old kid on an 8-year-old team. And he hung in there fine. You know who that kid was?
No.
That was Fred Seagraves.
Yes,
Freddie.
it was. Yes.
Who ended up becoming an all-time great hockey player.
No kid.
For Enfield
Wow.
High, yeah. Scored a ton of goals. His brother was really good too, Bobby. Bobby was more of a defenseman, enforcer. You wouldn't
Yes,
want to
I
mess
do
with him.
remember that.
But Fred Seagraves was on my first baseball team,
No kid.
and I'm not saying he didn't belong there. He belonged there fine, but he was too young.
Yeah.
But I'm sure the dad said, no, he's going to go play farms. He's not going to play this T-ball garbage.
Yeah,
And I
there was
remember he
some
hung
kids
in
on
there.
our team. There was some kid on our team that would rather go fishing.
Or the Boy Scout. There's a kid, I don't remember his name, but he wanted to be in the Boy Scouts, right?
Yes, and another one
remember
wanted to be a Boy
He
Scout.
would play with the bases at practice. Remember the spikes, and he put
Yes.
the damn base up
Yes.
and put the
Yeah.
dirt.
Yes, and he
I don't remember that kid's name, but
at first he didn't want really to play baseball.
at all.
But I think mother and father wanted to drop him out and have a couple hours for us to babysit
That's
him.
right.
So we did. We babysit that kid because when it was him or his turn to bat, Mr. Dube, please don't make me bad because I'm going to throw up. I'm going to go in the back and throw up. So you can give somebody else a chance to play, and I won't say nothing.
Yep.
And I said, well, it's okay, but you still got to play, you know. So we end up putting him in for a couple innings and stuff. But like I said,
It was rough.
he would rather dig worms to go
He was,
fishing
yeah.
than play baseball. But it's okay. He made it.
That was a heck of a year. I remember it. You know, I got the pictures. And then I played for the second year was the green team, was Geisler's.
Yep.
Minors, you know, right, that second year. And I don't, you were the head coach for that one too.
You're bringing back memories
Major.
now because it was a long time ago for me.
Yes. That was like 84, 85. Geisler's was the second team. And then the third year was majors, 10, 11, 12. And that was where they started to evaluate, right? The tryouts.
Yes.
And I got picked by Triano Loyal, the dark blue team, who had no wins that year, the year before.
Yep.
I ended up on that team. Bob Tatro was the coach.
Yes.
You helped him out.
Yes.
You were the assistant.
Yeah.
Bob took over his son, he played as a 9-year-old in that league.
Yes.
He played for a different team. That year he came on Trianos. I got picked Trianos. I think that year we won one game. That first year.
1 or 2 games.
1 or 2. The second year we were about 500.
Right.
I remember like Chris Cody on that team.
Yes.
And I can't remember some of the older kids, but we had some pretty good older kids. But it was the younger crew that started to gain some speed. And then that last year, we beat Holy Name, I think, in the final.
Yeah.
And Holy Name had Pat Burns. That was Pat. Mr. Burns was the coach.
Finals, and 1 year you became an all-star with that we went to.
Yeah, we won the zone.
Yeah, we won the zone.
That was the third year.
Yeah.
That was the red team, the all-star team. We had Lou Cash and Tatro and me and I don't want to forget the name. Bruce Rosignol, Vichidamini played first base. I played right field.
Good kids.
Chris Stetson, who was a hell of a little league baseball player, pitch. But I remember for Triano, Tatro would pitch and I would catch, and he would reverse.
Right.
But I was a left-handed catcher at that time, just out of need.
Yeah.
I loved it, though. I really liked catching. I knew they had all these damn rules. You're not supposed to catch as a lefty, but y'all did that. You put me in there. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is when I went to high school, I played at the high, and I don't know if you remember. There was a game my junior year, and it's an infamous game. The guys in the group know this game because we've talked about it a lot. It's a real crappy thing, but I think you were at the game. We played Fermi. Turek is pitching. This is Turek's senior year.
Yes.
I'm playing first base.
Yes.
There's a pop-up with 2 outs on the infield. And it's over the second baseman's head, which was Brett Ferry. Were you at that game? You remember this play at all?
It seemed familiar.
I thought you were there because the next day, Brummage, Chief, wanted to know what you thought of the play. He goes, what'd your dad think about that play there? But the play was, I looked over at Brett, and he was looking at me. So I panicked. I didn't think he saw it. I didn't have a whole lot of confidence that it was an easy play. But me, I've always been an overthinker. I just, maybe almost too much effort. I should have just let it be. The kid's right there. It's literally, you're the second baseman. It's right over his head. I had to come running 20 feet. So I come, and we bump, and the ball lands in. The kid makes it. Now there's 2 on, 2 out. Pat Burns is the next hitter. He works a count. I don't remember what the count was, but he works the count, and he hits a 3-run missile at Powder Hollow into the damn parking lot. I think that just put him ahead by 1. They needed a 3-run homer to take the lead. It was the 6th inning. We lose the game. Probably the shittiest play of my entire life, But I always tell the story that Turek was the pitcher, and he pulled me aside. Either it was at that moment or after the game. And he said, I would have done the same thing. Don't worry about it. You were playing the game. You thought you needed to go catch it. Like a lot of times a pitcher on the mound, the guy in the field makes an error, and they're pissy about it, right? Like, and they're outwardly pissy. Yeah. It's one thing to be pissy in your mind, and you compose yourself, right? But he was composed, and he could have slayed me, and he didn't. I never forgot that. It's a story that these guys have heard a million times, but it's just one of those things in sports where being a teammate is more important than the result of the game,
That's
the
right.
outcome.
Just the competition itself is an important thing. I mean, to be there and playing that game. Unless you do that and you get involved in a sport like this, you don't know how to. People don't realize how much is involved in everything. But
That's a great point.
You practice, you play the game, and you do it to the best of your knowledge and everything. And yes, you will make mistakes and stuff, but you got to move on. And the next game, you become better and better. And the thing is to compete, just to be in the sport and compete, staying out of trouble. And I mean, like any day, it's one thing or another, but you're never going to be perfect, but you make the best of it.
Yep. I want to talk about my transition from being a high school ball player and a student to going to college, because I think that that's a real special part of our story. First of all, that was the first time I ever went on an airplane. And I know you and Mom knew that, because you all decided you were going to come along. You're going to bring me to school, right? I had been communicating with this school. I sent a videotape. The Brummages helped me. Mrs. Brummage was at all my games my senior year, taking film. I sent that tape, a VHS tape. I hand wrote a letter to the coach, to a few coaches out there. It was a few schools. And I got a reply from the coach at Independence, Paul Marcus. And I got a scholarship offer just like that, right? Which was, recruiting now is like, if you're not 11 years old and playing travel ball with an agent, you're behind. But back then it was real grassroots. And I was getting some attention locally, but my grades were bad, right? I was looking at U-Hart would come, Eastern, UConn. I had some irons in the fire, but my grades were not going to help me get in there. But
it wasn't because you weren't smart. You wasn't applying.
I wasn't applying it. That's very true.
But
that came out later. But
Bob Brummage said, Mr. Dube, what are we going to do with this kid? I mean, this is time now to graduate. Either get a job or you got to go to school. So he says, what do you think? I said, well, it would be great if he could go to school and continue on. So after the coach got back to you and everything, we ended up going to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, we flew into Tulsa.
We flew, and then we took a ride to
Bartlesville. Well, I think right from Tulsa to Independence.
For both me and Mark going in that car and driving on the highway and seeing nothing but oil field and
oil
farm,
rigs and soybeans.
And soybeans, and on the side of the road, we're used to seeing all kinds of animals, but it was always the same. I can't remember the name of the animal now that was always on the side of the highway.
Oh, it was freaking armadillos.
Yes, armadillo.
Yep.
And a lot of oil rigs. And then we finally got to Independence and got a motel, and we stayed there for a few days. And got to meet the teachers and the school and everything. And just felt at least that I wasn't just dropping them over. And felt good about what I seen that week. And a little surprised in a way. We went to a few restaurants, and it said for
this is 1993
for member only.
Members only.
For members only, and at the time, I really didn't know what they meant. I said, "Do you have to join a club or something to go to this restaurant?" No, Dad, this is a special membership that you have to have. And I was a little surprised because being from Canada, I never was surprised by anything. But still, I never seen white and black and things like that was a surprise to me. So Mark did explain what it was all about, and I was very, very surprised.
Yeah, that's wild.
And then we moved on to different things, and we met the proper people, and then I got back on my way, and I left them behind with no doubt that he was mature enough to take it.
Yep. Yeah, I remember that explicitly. It was hot. You know, Kansas isn't considered a real hot, but it was August. You know, you think about Texas and the South being hot, but it was 100 there and dry as a bone. And I also remember being, you know, nervous, but I wasn't coming home.
Right.
You know, this was my one shot to do something.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, I would have figured something out. I would have got a trade or went to the military. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to play baseball.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity to do that. Somebody wanted me to play. Somebody gave me money to go to school, right? I got some money from that school, which was great. It made it very inexpensive. It's not like going to college nowadays, my God. But and then the last thing was, when I got there, I committed to studying. You know, like now that JUCO was filled with people exactly like me or worse, in terms of this guy's got ability, but he's out of control in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's just not studying, or they were on drugs, or they had a freaking criminal record, or we had the kids from Puerto Rico that would come in, and one of them was drafted, dipped into the rookie league in the A-ball, and he wasn't ready. There was a catcher we had.
Yeah.
So the Brewers paid for him to go to community college, or they don't have the same rules as NCAA. You know, if you turn pro, you can't go back to college, but you can there. So they were paying full ride for him to come play a year in junior college, so they could take him back and give him another shot.
Yeah.
But I learned to study when I went there. I learned, like you said in the service for you.
Yeah.
You learn discipline. You learn to make your own bed. I had a good roommate. We were about going once a week to the laundromat. We were about going to practice on time. We were about going down the street when we knew the kids on the team were doing drugs and like pulling them out of these parties so that we could go play a doubleheader the next day. Like that's where I built a lot of my independent leadership. Now I could have went down the other path, but I didn't. I never had that in my blood.
Yeah.
So that was a great experience. I mean, you know, that set me down the path for the rest of my life. If I could do that, if I could go out there and live on my own and get my grades together, play a little ball and learn some independence, I could do anything. And that's exactly what happened. So, all right, I want to talk about this now. So you and I have been to some sporting events that are honestly, you know, I know everybody's seen this, seen that, seen the other thing, and I'm sure above and beyond what we've seen. But we've seen a few things in history that are damn historical moments. So we're going to talk about a couple of those things. The first one we're going to talk about is 2004 American League Championship Series.
Right.
Yankees, Red Sox.
Yes.
Game 4.
Yes.
I got 2 free tickets from a coworker of mine.
From a Yankee fan.
A Yankee fan, but a nice guy.
Yeah.
And he loves you, and he gave us 2 tickets. Go enjoy the game. They were a third base side, maybe a little down the line, though, closer to right field, probably, right?
Yeah.
All right, so talk a little bit about what you remember about that night.
Well,
that's the last time I've been to Fenway, by the way.
No kidding.
I have not been back to Fenway since that Game 4 win.
The greatest game.
20 years.
2004 was fantastic. I mean, they were down 3 games.
And at that time, it's over.
And it
it's
looks like
garbage.
it might have been over. But we said, no, this is not over. We're going to go see that game.
You get to go to the playoffs. You
And
go
we
to
went
the damn game.
to that game. And at the time, I think I was driving was it the Gremlin? Or the Focus? It might have been the Focus. A little yellow car. It looked like a journalist.
It was the Focus.
Yeah. So we drove down there.
Did we not have a van at that time?
Oh.
Yeah, that was the car.
So we got down there.
Night game, 7 or 8 o'clock start.
Yes, and then it got started, and it was just a fantastic game.
Close game, whole game.
Close game right to the end.
There's a Yankee fan right behind us,
and
run his mouth the whole night too.
Yes,
he was.
Yes.
I know everybody can be obnoxious. This guy was out of control. There's like, remember those the other Bostonites, those big freaking trucker type guys. They wanted to kick his ass.
A whole bunch of people all dressed up in Yankee uniforms and stuff, and
mixed crowd.
A real mixed crowd, loaded with people. And we're really late at night.
Well, it goes to extras.
And it goes into extra inning. And we had to. Oh, I know why we
Sunday
parked
night
at
game.
the T.
Yeah, we parked at the Riverside, the first
Yes.
station.
Yes, and to go back, you have to take the T back, and it was so late that they said, "Oh well,
They stopped running
there
trains.
won't be any." We stopped, but when we got there was thousands of people, and they said, "Oh, we're going to bring some more
Yes.
train, and we're going to run back to the station and everything." But we saw this home run by Big Papi
Yep.
that changed the whole game, and they went to New York, and they went on to win everything after that.
Never lost another game.
They never lost another game.
Yep.
And the fantastic night where on the way back, and Mark says, "You don't mind, Dad, if I bring the seat back and I fall asleep because I got to go to work the next day."
It was a
And
Sunday night. I had school.
I'm taking the next day off. I don't care.
Yeah, I didn't
But
want
he
to.
says, "No, I want to go to school and tell all the kids what night we had."
Where I was.
And I put the seat down and I says, "Oh," he started snoring and stuff. I says, "Oh my goodness, now I got to drive back. Keep my eyes open on the way back." And we got through the traffic fairly good, and we made it back home.
I think it was about 4:30.
Yeah, and I said,
Slept for about an hour
my
and then
goodness.
just turned it around. And
I'm going to
Went to
bed.
school.
I don't know about you, but he says, "Oh no, I'm going to go to school because
Yep.
this is going to be a super day."
I was riding that high.
Oh.
And listen, I wanted to leave the game. They tied it in the ninth. Everybody famously knows how.
Yeah.
Right? Millar walks. They pinch run Roberts. He goes, well, they throw over about 3 times. Rivera does.
Yeah.
He's still second. He's barely in there, but he gets in there. Single by Bill Miller.
Yeah.
Left field, tie the game.
Yeah.
They go to 12. They play 12 innings.
Yes.
But it was probably the 10th or the 11th. I said, "Dad, we got school tomorrow. I want to go." I said,
We're here to the end.
we're not going anywhere.
We're not going anywhere.
He wouldn't have it.
We're going to see the end of this game
Yeah.
because we're going to win this game.
Yeah.
And we did.
And I was still in the mindset, like, it doesn't matter. Even if they pull out this game, they're not winning this series. I want to go to bed. I want to go to work. But that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Because, we all know. And then they won 4 titles, right? And my dad is not a tattoo guy.
2004, 2007, 2013, and 2018.
They added the years.
I had to.
At one time, though, it was 04 in the Sox.
Yeah.
And then they cleaned it up, right? They refilled it. Well, it goes to show you the passion and the commitment that we have for
win or lose, we're Red Sox fans.
That's right.
It doesn't make any difference. We're going to rebuild and we're going to get back there.
It's a little ugly right now.
That's
Patience,
all.
right?
Yeah.
All right. The other one I want to talk about too, and this will lead us to maybe our last topic, is I was a latecomer to my allegiance to this sport, but you've forever been a huge racing fan.
Yes.
From your very young days, to the local tracks, Riverside Park and
Stafford
Speedway.
Plainville. I went to Waterford. I went to Thompson.
The dirt track.
And the Modify at that time was a super racing team. And I always liked Billy Greco. And I had Bugsy Stevens and Fred DeSero. There was a lot of guys that I followed for many, many years. Yeah. And I was very sad when they closed Riverside Park because it was very close to us. And we could hear the sound from my house on a Saturday night. And I went to Stafford quite a few times on Friday night. And there was some all-star game that was played for the Wednesday night sometime in Plainville, and they had all the best drivers to meet there and compete against different people, And we were going to mostly all these big shows and stuff, and it was fantastic racing at that time. And then, Stafford and Thompson is still open, but it's not the racing that we had in the past with the Modified and the Coupe and all the Pinto Revolution and the Gremlin and Chevy Vega and stuff. And it was, the era moving on that they couldn't have enough coupe to make the racing, so they moved on to the Pinto, Vega, and Gremwood
Whatever they
at
could
that
find.
time, with the big engine and the
Sure.
small bodies and stuff, and
I don't know.
very, very competitive.
And I listen, I don't know enough about it. I don't follow it locally, but I do see what it's like in the big leagues. You got to have money, right? Those guys then, and you could talk about this,
Yeah.
they sleep in the damn barn, and they just gave their life to it. Now it's like, if you want to race, and maybe this, honestly, it's not that different from other sports. If your parents got all kinds of money, they can put you into all different things, and you really need money now to kind of have a path, like this Daddy Ball or all the guys in NASCAR now. This one owns a casino. This one owns a chain of grocery stores. This one owns Menards. This one is Roger Penske's so-and-so. This one owns Haas Automotive Automation.
Some people were very, very athletic and very good at driving, and some people had money. Like Joey Logano came from Middletown, Connecticut, but his dad owned recycling and
he had money,
trash management and stuff.
Yeah.
He had money. He sold that business and everything, and he went to the Carolinas and built an ice rink for the daughter.
Yeah.
And he built a racetrack for his son, Joey Logano.
Yeah.
So he became a great driver. She became a skater, and it took off from there because he had money at that time.
Yeah.
And then Penske saw Joey Logano had a lot of background, a lot of good racing, and his future was clear. He was going to make it in the big league, so he signed him to a big contract and stuff. But without big sponsor, it's very hard.
You need to bring a sponsor to the table.
Enric Motorsport and everything. Those people
that's one
have
of few.
4 or 5 drivers now, and they're huge in racing because in the past, all the sponsors went with the winners, and there was a winner and a winning team.
Yeah.
And there it is.
That's right.
The racing team.
And that's where this sport is a little different from baseball, basketball, football, in that you can have a sport franchise, and of course advertising is important.
Yes.
But in racing, without it, you're not running. You need an advertising partner, sponsor, and usually multiple.
Yes.
Or you can't run the vehicle.
Yes, for the whole year, for the whole season.
And usually the driver will bring a sponsor with him.
Yes.
Unless you're dynamite, then they'll go find you one. Like the Kyle Larson, who, of course, he made a mistake and he used some poor choice of words. But he's so damn talented. Henrik said, well, put my internet website on your car and off you go. And he won the title.
A second chance, and he took advantage of, and he made the best of it. I mean, there's many young person now, they're very competitive.
Right.
And they do have sponsors and stuff, and you're not talking about thousands of dollars.
No,
you're
millions.
talking millions for to be able to compete with all these super teams.
I guess that's where it's a little sad. It's like, when you're a kid, there's Little League or there's travel ball or there's AAU. With racing, you need a dad and a mom that are going to put you in quarter midgets and spend probably $50,000, $70,000, $100,000 to get you, those go-karts or a quarter midget and drive you on a trailer with a Ford F-150 or a dually. Right, we're talking $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to bring a kid to go race. Like, it really has become really truly the rich man's game. Whereas when you think about racing in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s,
it was completely different.
Poor, this guy'd give you a Ford and you'd work on it. Right, the Petties actually were the first super family, right?
Yeah,
they actually had money in racing.
Yeah.
Which is a big criticism of them. The Petties are what they were because they were pouring money into their teams, and nobody else was really doing that. They had the freaking better equipment,
the whole
better
family
engine.
was involved. The brothers,
the dad,
and the sisters,
that's
and
Maurice,
brother-in-law. Everybody built the engine and everything, so they competed because they had a big family all involved in making transmission, making the the motor go, and now with NASCAR, with all the rules they have, and they have to maintain all these rules and regulations.
It levels the playing field.
It has to be very competitive across.
Yeah.
So this way here, you got to look at what it was in the 60s and in the 50s. You know, you build a motor in a garage, in a shed in the back of the house, and you could compete because the rules were different.
And it
was ruled, but it was different.
And it was a stock car.
Yeah.
You know, it's at least the base of it. And then they would fabricate and build it up into a hot rod. But these were cars that you could get on the lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. In some cases, there's some driver that drove there in that car and left there with that car.
There was no hauler. You know, it's
It was different.
Yeah.
But that's how much competition you have today.
So, last story. Let's talk about going to the Daytona 500, which you had been. You and Dave had been a number of times and saw some really great events. But we went in 2014.
Right.
My cousin was living in Florida and had a wedding the same weekend, the day before.
Yeah.
So we said, well, geez, we're going to go, but we can go to the 500, right?
Right.
So we get Daytona 500 tickets. This is 2014. Now, I'm a huge Dale Jr. fan, and that started because when he changed from the Bud team to Hendrick Motorsports, ESPN put out a kind of like a documentary about the process of him shopping around as a free agent to thinking about what next team he was going to go on, because he was going to leave DEI. That was his dad's team. His dad had passed away. His mother-in-law was in charge of the team. He wanted to buy the team. She tried to milk him out of a lot of money. She should have charged him $1 and said, come into business with me. That team would still be alive today. We all know that.
Yes.
But she, out of spite, tried to make money off the kid. So he said, I'm going to walk. That team fizzled in the next 5 years. She had to sell it to another team. Anyway, be that as it may, I became a Dale Jr. fan because of that documentary.
Yeah.
I liked his personality. I liked the whole story. He's obviously very popular. But I really went all in as being a big Dale Jr. fan. But my first favorite guy was Jeff Bodine, because that was our guy.
Yeah.
Levi Garrett, number 5, Rick Hendrick, that was the team. He won the Daytona 500 in 86.
Yes. And if it wasn't for Jeff Bodine and Rick Motor, it wouldn't have been around.
We're going to run one more race at Martinsville.
Yep.
And he won. Jeff Bodine won that race, and that gave him enough money to go to the next track.
Exactly.
That was it.
All the team
and it went from there.
Members decided that if we were to win that, we would continue.
Yep. Because they'd have a little bit more capital.
Right.
Just a little bit enough to tires, gas, pay the crew, whatever. But anyway.
And Jeff Bodine became a man that made the transmission for all racing.
Yep.
He designed the transmission that made it, and the power steering was Jeff Bodine's design.
Real genius guy, engineer. I did a lot with the bobsleds for the USA Olympic team. He designed the aero and all that, the technology behind it.
Put up a lot of money for the sled with the Kuno Enterprise. Those people helped him build that sled and made it very positive for the American.
And I think we loved Bodine too, because in the 80s,
he
was one of the only Yankees where he was from Chibug, New York, upstate, and went down south, as they would say it then, to be successful and have a cup ride in NASCAR with the Dale Earnhardts and the Bill Elliott's, all from North Carolina or Georgia or the southern states, Texas.
Yes.
So that was another reason why we loved him. But anyway, we go to the Daytona 500. Let's talk about the 2014 race.
Goodness.
It's hot, right? It's southern Florida, central Florida in February. 85, humid,
and the rain came.
Oh my God! They got maybe 40 laps in.
Oh,
just a little blip. Handling was terrible. It was very hot. My guy, Dad's guy is Jimmy Johnson. Has been from 2002 on. My guy was Junior, and my brother likes Truex Jr., who's had a really great career, was a late bloomer. But anyway, my guy was junk. He was mid-pack, wasn't looking good in the middle of that race. But the rain came 6 hours and 22 minutes rain delay. And now I had to go home the next morning no matter what. My brother was saying, no, I'm not going to go home. I'll get another flight. But I needed to come home. So if they didn't run, I would have missed it. But they wanted to get the race in. What time did they restart that race? It must have been 9 something or 10 o'clock.
Very close to 10 o'clock.
They restarted with the majority of the race still to run. So we're talking 140, 150 laps remaining of the race. But it got dark.
Yep.
The track cooled, and it was what they call a green track. All the rubber washed away with all that rain. I mean, we're talking about a torrential rain.
Yes.
And they took off, and that racing was impeccable because they had so much grip.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
The racing was amazing.
We went back on that delay in the car. We changed to different clothes and everything.
Snacks,
we were all wet.
Hung out.
And then we came back and we got the greatest seat because a lot of people had left.
Oh, that's right. We moved.
And some people came
to
back.
VIP.
They called that the race was going to resume.
That's right.
So we ended up having great seat and watched the greatest race in that year. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Yep, the passing,
the
competition,
forth. Back and forth, and the kid that dad was a superhero.
Yep,
became on top of his game, and he was really running the best race.
Yep, he put it out front, and there was one time maybe with 30-ish to go, he got past. I think it was Edwards, got to the front. And about 3 laps later, he made a move left, right, and he was right back to the front.
Yep.
And then there was a late caution, which pushed it into overtime.
Yep.
And that car, that 88 National Guard car, picked up debris on the front of the car. Remember that?
Yeah.
Big black. It was bare bond.
He's going to overheat. He's going to
overheat.
But it made him more powerful.
And you said this.
Yeah.
You said it. We weren't listening to the TV. The TV said it. But Dad, what did you say about that?
Because of the debris in there gave him more power, and you could see him pass right or pass left, and all people in the crowd were all saying, "Oh, he's going to overheat." It turned out to be a real cool night, and he never
and it was
had
2
any
laps
with overheat. They only had a couple laps left, and he was more powerful than anybody. Could stay up in front and pass right or left. It didn't make any difference.
Yep.
Junior had the best car.
Yeah. And it came around the third, turn 4. Of course, in a big race like that, they're all trying to get to the front. Harvick, couple bumped in the back, and they wrecked. Huge wreck.
Yeah.
Caution flew, end of the race, and he won the race.
Yeah.
And the only reason I bring that up is because, and Dad, we've been to Dover every year, you know, just about every year, and we've seen Jimmy Johnson win multiple races.
Yes.
He was the king of Dover. When you go to racing and you get to see your favorite driver win the race, because it's so rare, you don't get. First of all, especially Junior, he didn't win a ton. You know, he won some races. He wasn't a big winner though.
Yeah.
But to go to the race and to go to the 500, the Super Bowl, and your favorite guy to win that one, and you were there to see it, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, other than going to Fenway.
Yeah.
And seeing the Red Sox beat the Yankees, and that was the beginning.
It was a fantastic, because for you at Daytona, seeing Dale Jr. win this race.
Yep. Where his dad died, right?
First time that you saw at Daytona.
Never been to Daytona.
To be up and down and jumping up and down and being the happy guy that competed with 40 guys on a racing surface.
Nuts.
That was the best time of our life.
Yes, sir. Me too. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there. I want to say thank you.
You're very welcome.
You're the man, the captain.
Yep.
Gilles Dube on Brews with Dube. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys down the road.
Thank you.
Sticking to the damn chair.
Have a good.
I'm going to edit it.